Well, I'm going to say good morning to you because it's 6 o'clock in the morning, January 19th, 2021. Just one last day of the Trump presidency, one last full day. And tomorrow, hopefully, we'll have a better country ahead of us. I always wish each new president, no matter what I think of that president, the best in performance. I didn't like Trump, but I wished him the best 4 years ago. I don't like Biden. I'm going to wish him the best. I'm going to wish any president the best. So, one day prior, want to go and make that abundantly clear. Apologies to you all because I'm also one day late. Yesterday, Monday, January 18, 2021, was MLK Day, Martin Luther King Day. And I want to wish each and every one of you just the same a happy Martin Luther King Day. And I also want to take this time to reflect and affirm on the historical legacy of Martin Luther King. It can be said that MLK led America a significant way toward racial equality, and his movement and his participation in the civil rights movement made all the difference in the world, and it was done through nonviolence. Along with racial equality was desegregation, voting rights, the peace movement, labor rights. And combine that all together, we still have a long ways to go. Um, there's been a lot of setbacks in the last decade on race relations, and I don't want to be partisan in this particular instance, but some people didn't handle the first black president being elected very well. Now, disagreements, if there are disagreements over policies, you don't like taxes, you don't like, universal health care or Obama's particular approach toward universal health care, or you don't like certain aspects of foreign policy, what have you, you have a conservative, right leaning perspective, that's legitimate. And I believe that there are conservatives that have respectful disagreements with Obama over policy, what they believe was a very liberal, not far left liberal enough for me, but far left liberal for many Republicans that had nothing to do with his race. I'm not saying just to be magnanimous in a fake sort of way. I mean, I take people as they are, but there was a significant number of people also on in within that camp of the political right that could not handle Barack Obama being black. Oh, he was from Kenya. He's a secret Muslim trying to destroy Western civilization, that sort of thing. The Tea Party movement, with the Confederate flags all over the place. Not every Tea Party member, but there was a significant amount of those people there with those obnoxious signs with Obama dressed up as an African witch doctor, the bone across the nose, or Obama being hung in the news in effigy. You can't tell me that's not out of love. The point I'm trying to make is that this country, you have people that did not or resented the fact that a black man could be elected and serve this country. Now, I have my problems with Obama too, and I'm not making this about Obama. I'm talking about how it relates to race. I have my differences with Obama too on a policy level, but it was on a policy level from the political left. I didn't think he was far left enough. He governed to the right of Richard Nixon. And as I said, I'm sad to say that race relations made a turn backwards instead of forward, and it's not his fault. It's the fault of certain segments of the white population. And I'm not one to go lecture people about identity politics, but there is a certain segment of the population that resented the fact that a black man could be president. And I thought we were beyond that. I actually thought we were beyond that. I thought we were at one time a post racial America, but sadly, we're not. Let me go on. I mean, we have civil rights. I mean, there is a basic civil rights exists. I mean, as far as overt discrimination everywhere in this country, the ones that are so obvious, yeah, they're not going to, you, you know, you're not going to be turned away or asked to go to the back of the bus as a general rule, or you're not going to have somebody go into a restaurant and refuse to be served or anything like that. That kind of, I mean, that kind of equality that exists as a result of the civil rights movement, I don't believe that's going to go away. But other areas where there is systemic racism and criminal justice, which is one of the reasons I oppose the death penalty. Police brutality. And while I do not think that what Reagan did in terms of deindustrialization, where all these trade policies and when the union busting that took place, I don't think that was necessarily racially motivated on his part, but you had until then you had a rising black middle class that had the rug snatched from under them, along with a lot of white folks too, for that matter. And we've seen the rise of income inequality from all across the board. This is the class reductionism in me speaking on this. What I'm trying to make, it gotten worse and worse over the years. And we have income inequality, and then it gets more severe and more severe, and a near economic crisis and collapse where our economy almost went under in 2007. And there's a lot of uncertainty. You have people who wants to go and blame and blame and blame. And I'm not wrong in my observation saying this. I'm absolutely correct and dead on, spot on. So while Martin Luther King did a lot of good, and that is not to be disputed, he did a lot of good that's still here with us. We have had some setbacks, and we need to go and repair race relations. I say maybe the best way to go about this is through class struggle, bringing back the unions, universal health care, challenging predatory capitalism. And these were the things that Martin Luther King believed, not just only for his fellow African Americans, but for all people. Now, here's where I will get very partisan and do so without apology. Martin Luther King was a socialist. And I know that this made conservative Republicans, the kind that wants to make conservatism appealing to the African Americans, will jot the line down occasionally about how Martin Luther King believed in the strength of your character instead of the color of your skin or what have you. And I hear that same old song and dance from people like Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh will say it occasionally. But Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and all these partisan hacks who want to claim that Martin Luther King was a Republican a conservative, a right winger. I hear Wild Bill for America do it. And the thing about it is, it's very disingenuous when they say that because if they think that Martin Luther King was the end all and was so wonderful, they wouldn't be. They wouldn't have to agree with socialism, but they wouldn't be bashing socialism the way that they do. Corporate Democrats, I'm not letting them off the hook because many of them do it in the name of virtue signaling. I mean, like the Biden administration, trying to be diverse, racially, ethnically, sexual orientation wise diverse, but still have a lot of the Bill Clinton style third way corporatist agenda that rejected the New Deal consensus. And I'm not going to sit there and just because the Secretary of Defense is an African American and we get ourselves involved in another war in the Middle East. I'm not going to be like, well, an African American person is a Secretary of Defense, or we have some of the top ranking generals, what have you, and when we engage in drone strikes and what have you, I'm not going to be looking and be like, well, um, I don't like the droning, but at least it's diverse and they're and it's got nice little rainbows as they're killing brown people across halfway across the world. No, Martin Luther King was opposed to war, and he have been upset by these corporate Democrats. Lyndon Johnson gets a lot of crap for the Vietnam War, and he deserves to get a lot of crap for it. But objectively speaking, from my political ideology, as far as the domestic economy was concerned, he might have been the last decent president we've had in this country. The Great Society was a success. The problem with the Great Society in its aftermath are politicians there have been doing it where they could to undermine it, and in a lot of ways, a lot of conservatives have undermined it just enough that the cycle dependency, which no welfare is race neutral, by the way, and more white people percentage wise are on welfare than African Americans, but for some reason, right wing politicians have painted welfare with a black face, which is a stupid thing because when the concept of welfare came about, it wasn't designed for a race group. And then I have to hear the occasional condescending lecture by right wing partisans about the liberal plantation. There is no such a thing as a liberal plantation. But I'm going to get partisan here. If anything, Martin Luther King, while not a member, orbited around the old Socialist Party of America, the political party of Eugene Debs, Norman Thomas, Michael Harrington, that Socialist Party, the Socialist Party of America, which was the forerunner of Social Democrats USA, the forerunner of Democratic Socialists of America, the forerunner of the Socialist Party USA, and get this, the forerunner of what is currently being created right now, the Social Democratic and Labor Party of America. The communist allegations were made by J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI. The Ku Klux Klan claimed MLK was a communist. The John Birch Society claimed that MLK and the Civil Rights Movement were communists or were riddled with communists within its rank. And yeah, there were communists that were very supportive of the Civil Rights Movement. So what? They were right to support it. It was a righteous cause. I may not agree with communism, but on the question of civil rights, the communists in this country were correct And the right wing people at the time, especially those who were overtly racist, were wrong and remain wrong. Martin Luther King engaged with nonviolence. And a man by the name of Barrett Rustin from the Socialist Party of America, he kind of helped Martin Luther King with the concept of nonviolence and and civil disobedience. Not a lot of people talk about Barrett Rustin today, and it's a shame because because Barrett Rustin was a homosexual when he was alive. He was a gay man. He died in 1987, but it was at a time when it was considered unacceptable, and so he kind of remained a shadowy figure in the background as far as being an assistant to the movement because he wanted to help with the greater good of the movement. The civil rights, the March on Washington in 1963, set up by A. Philip Randolph, who was with the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, African American activist. Some people could say was the predecessor to Martin Luther King. Helped create it a long ways the black middle class through the trade union movement. Of course, that was in the North and in the Midwest and Northeast, because in the South unions were close to non-existence. And sad that the rest of the United States have followed the South when it came to unions instead of the other way around. 1963, a March on Washington, where Martin Luther King delivered his "I Have a Dream" speech, shared on the same stage with Norman Thomas. As a side note about A. Philip Randolph, A. Philip Randolph in 1943 set up a plan to set up a March on Washington during the heyday of World War II, hoping for racial equality. And he had a friend in the White House. I mean, with regard to FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, and Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, granted, Franklin Roosevelt was kind of tepid on civil rights. He was sympathetic, but was tepid on it because trying to get through the Depression and trying to restructure the economy. But Eleanor Roosevelt was a very, very strong proponent of racial equality. And I think she had a lot to do with FDR's decision in 1943. Because in 1943, when the March on Washington was proposed, word had it that FDR heard about it and asked A. Philip Randolph to call it off. And A. Philip Randolph refused to. So he made an ultimatum with A. Philip Randolph. He said, "You call off this march, I will by executive order, desegregate the city of Washington, D.C." So Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, became racially desegregated. We know about the 1964 Civil Rights Act that traveled a long way. That was followed suit after JFK's assassination. And then the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Martin Luther King received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. As the Vietnam War started and it started to look like a problem, and during the age of television, it was a war. It was a war that was covered on the news every day, and it was problematic. And Martin Luther King joined with many people in the anti-war movement and became a proponent of withdrawal from Vietnam. That got him into some public relations hot water because even back then, many liberals were in favor of the war in Vietnam. Getting concerned about his radicalism by what was called the Poor People's Campaign down in the South, trying to unionize public sector workers. on April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated by James Earl Ray, possibly connected to the FBI. A sad time it was, but it took some years for everything to calm down, for a veneer of stability where it looked like we were on the road toward racial equality. There was a movement to declare Martin Luther King's Day as a federal holiday, and it was controversial still within the aftermath of the civil rights movement and post Vietnam. You still have some people that were, while they barely accepted integration, were resentful to MLK and his legacy. So they decided to smear him by saying, he was a communist, or he was a sexual pervert, or he went and plagiarized while he was at university. Don't give a damn if he plagiarized or not. Don't give a damn if he was having sex with multiple women on the side. I'm not saying it's a wonderful thing, but you know what? He did. I'd rather honor somebody who cheated on his wife than some freaking prude out there that embraces policies that harm people. Martin Luther King's policies was just the opposite of that. People like Jesse Helms, the biggest embarrassment in North Carolina from my perspective, because I am a North Carolinian. Through the time I was politically aware of what Jesse Helms was and what he was all about, I hung my head in shame knowing that I'm from North Carolina and Jesse Helms is my freaking senator. I did what I could, vote, with my vote to make sure he was unseated. Unfortunately, that never came into being. He made it clear that MLK's birthday holiday, he would do what he can to put it to a stop. But even President Ronald Reagan signed it into law in 1983. It became a federal holiday. Some states continued to resist it till around 2000, and then eventually 2000 onto the present, it is pretty much recognized in all 50 states, and maybe in all the U.S. territories. That I'm not sure about. But legacy being what it is, I figured that I share this with you, and remember that this is not over, and we have to go and march on and work toward racial equality for all people. And I hope we will heal as a nation very soon. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you were offended, well, I don't know what to say other than just comment. We'll have a conversation. Share the content on this channel if you like. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you that if you're passionate about something, develop a platform and utilize it, because we're the muckrakers of our time. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, peace and Bernie Sanders for president in the year 2024.